Halftime TV viewers and subscribers. Naranda Brown here, your host, and today we'll be talking about the Reggae Boyz, and we're gonna do some takeaways from the game against Suriname last evening. Now, the Reggae Boyz will be playing. Well, they played against Suriname. They'll be playing against Mexico as well in their Nations League group. And for those who have been questioning the credibility of the Nations League, as we saw yesterday and the day before, some of the top teams across Europe as well as in the FIFA ranking, they lost their initial or inaugural Nations League game yesterday in their respective groups, right? So we had England lost, France lost as well, Belgium lost, and I could go on and on. Croatia, for example. Now the Reggae Boyz, we ended up with a draw, thankfully. And I say thankfully because we were lucky to come away with a draw from that one. Before I go any further, let me say thank you to my sponsors, Quick Link Shipping, RS Sports Store, and CSA Shop. And if you haven't done so as yet, smash the subscribe button. Be a part of the Halftime TV family going forward. No, I had 5 takeaways that I wrote down really yesterday while the game was taking place. I was actually doing a live. Opted that I was going to rewatch the game afterwards just to ensure that I grasped the full understanding of what happened throughout the 90 minutes or 94 minutes with the Reggae Boyz. All right, so going into this game, the Reggae Boyz were favorites. We were expected to win that one. I predicted personally Jamaica to come away 2-1 victors over Suriname, but that was not the case. It was a total different story from what we saw at the Gold Cup last year. Now I have some takeaways, 5 in total, that I'll be going through. The first one is commitment. Now Paul Hall spoke about commitment prior to the game. Seemed as if some players who were not seemed as if some of the players who were invited to the squad, they received their call up. They provided excuses as to why they weren't able to make it for this international outing, and as such it called into question the commitment of the players. Now, commitment has always been a word that has been thrown around when it comes down to the national team, whether it's the English-based players or even some of the players who, I won't even say they're locally based, but some of the players who you would expect to be fully committed to the program, it's always seen as if they have other things that they consider more important than the national team. And again, like, their clubs pay them, so if they decide that they want to stay with the club or they don't want to come to the national call during the regular season, fine. But during the off season, as is the case with most of the teams now, it's kind of hard to come up with excuses as to why you can't make your national call up. All right, so again, commitment, and we will be seeing that word a whole lot more because we will have international call-ups where players will not be showing up, and then whenever the coaches, they go out and they recruit other talents, whether it is from the United Kingdom or elsewhere, then we will call into question why are we relying so heavily on foreign-based players instead of some of our players that are homebred. And again, we will continue to hear that sentiment. All right, so I won't dwell too much on commitment because I'm sure we will be discussing it again in a few weeks' time, come what may be. All right, so my next pointer, Paul Hall talks the talk, but he doesn't walk the walk. The reason I say this, whenever Paul Hall is in front of a camera, he speaks so well, he's so eloquent, he says all the right things, kind of like a politician. His charisma is there. He gives you a bit of hope, a bit of promise that, okay, probably there is a silver lining come the end of the day. Probably there is light at the end of the tunnel, and you get that feeling as supporters of the national team. Whether or not he can actually deliver, it's still in question because we haven't seen anything from the first, what he's been in the position since last year, and we've still not seen anything to convince us that he is the man for the job, that he actually possesses what it takes to take the national team forward and to take us to the next World Cup. Now, if that performance against Suriname is any indication of where we're headed or what's to come next from the national team, then I must say those out there who support Jamaica's football team and are fans of the national team, you have a cause for concern. So again, Paul Hall, he talks the talk, not so sure if he walks the walk. All right, so my third pointer, Alm Nightmare. Alm Night, he started in goal instead of Andre Blake, and we know Andre Blake is he's the custodian that everyone has grown accustomed to. He's the captain of the team as well, one of the best goalkeepers in MLS, probably the best keeper in CONCACAF. He's been Mr. Reliable for the national team for the longest while, and if you have a goalkeeper like that in front of you, it's hard to feel outdone, or it's hard for you to feel bad within yourself, because you know that that's a quality goalkeeper who's been given the nod week in, week out ahead of you. All right. Now, Alm Night, he was given the opportunity to go out there and prove himself, considering Andre Blake picked up an injury based on the reports that we received during the warm-up. It was one to forget. It was one to forget. And up until late down in the game, the Reggae Boyz were leading 1-0, and a blunder by Alm Night resulted in the game ending in a draw. And I'm pretty sure it's one of those nights that he will want to forget. Alm Night is one of those goalkeepers where he has been good, but of late I think he's only recently getting back to his best, and I don't think that performance or that blunder last night would have done his confidence any good whatsoever. I know he'll come back, because that's what goalkeepers do. It's one of the most difficult positions on the football field. You have to be concentrating 90 minutes, 94, 95 minutes, whatever it is. You have to be on the ball straight through, because one lapse in concentration can determine whether your team wins or loses, or whether you get a spot atop the Nations League group or you're at the base of it. So again, Alm Night had a nightmare. He will want to wake up from that as soon as possible. My next pointer, the best of Leon Bailey. Now, we're still waiting for Leon Bailey to arrive at the national team. We've seen glimpses of what he's capable of doing. We saw him, he was fantastic in Bayer Leverkusen a few years ago, came to Aston Villa this season, hasn't had the best of seasons, stop start for the most part, primarily due to injuries. Then when he came back from injuries, he was kept out of the team for a little bit. So he's had a season to forget, and on the national team, in the national team, we haven't seen the best of Leon Bailey, and I think we're still waiting to see what he's capable of doing. I think in the last World Cup qualifier, I think it was the last World Cup qualification game, we saw him take it on himself to do what we know he's capable of doing, but we haven't seen enough in the black, green and gold of Jamaica, and we will be hoping that Leon Bailey comes to the party rather sooner than later. So Leon Bailey, we're still waiting on you to arrive. When it's not one thing, it's the other with Leon Bailey. It's either he's injured or he comes in and then the team is constantly changing around him. I think Paul Hall should be building the team around Leon Bailey. Young, vibrant, promising. Build the team around these guys, and then some level of consistency will make it easier to get the best out of them. But still haven't seen the best out of Leon Bailey, and this is not me making excuses or pointing fingers towards the coaches or whatnot. The onus is on Leon Bailey to showcase his best, showcase what he's capable of doing whenever he lines up. First, Craig Butler, they had problems with Theodore Whitmore. They indicated that he was basically stifling Leon Bailey's creativity and his talent. Well, we now have Paul Hall, and we're still not seeing Leon Bailey at his best. So we're definitely hoping that changes, and we're hoping Leon Bailey, the world-class talent that he possesses, we're hoping that will be showcased in the national colors very, very soon. My final pointer, Suriname. So we've been talking about the Reggae Boyz throughout the entirety of this one, and I think we need to give more credit to the Suriname national team, because they actually have more structure than the Reggae Boyz, and I say that without tongue in cheek, because we saw them at the Gold Cup. Reggae Boyz won that game, but I must say the Suriname football team, they seemed a bit more organized than the Reggae Boyz. And there's a saying that I love to say: if you have 11 average players who are playing as a team, you stand a better chance against 11 world-class players who are all playing for themselves. All right, and again, the Surinamese team, they came out, they played their football, they stuck to the game plan, and it just seemed a little bit more organized and structured, like they knew what they were doing. They went behind, they didn't lose hope, and for the most part, I think they handled the ball really well. I know they have a strong Dutch connection, and the Dutch teams, they tend to be technically gifted. That's what we were seeing with the Suriname team last evening. They showcased that they're not just there to show up. They're just not there to take a place, just to show up to the game. They're there to stake a claim. And in the end, I think a draw was a bad result for the Suriname team. Yep, a draw was a bad result in my opinion. So again, they have players that like Dunk who played in Europe, who are probably past their best, but still they have other youngsters that are coming through. And again, as speaking of youngsters, it was good to see as well Paul Hall giving some youngsters the opportunity to showcase what they're capable of doing. Probably these youngsters are the ones who we need to build around, who we need to push forward. I spoke about Leon Bailey as well. I saw Kenroy Campbell, he came on in the 53rd, 54th minute thereabout. These youngsters, use them as a core of the team and build on that going forward. There are a number of other factors that I love to discuss, but I won't take up too much of your time. I'd like to hear what you, the viewers, have to say, you, the subscribers. Leave it in the comment section. What are your thoughts on the 1-1 draw with Suriname last evening? Did you enjoy the game? Personally, I think the Reggae Boyz have been extremely difficult to watch. Whenever I see them, it's a hard watch. And although I have friends and colleagues, associates who I speak with on a daily basis who actually play for the Reggae Boyz team, I must say it as it is, and they're difficult to watch, and that's primarily due to the structure and the organization from the coaches and the technical directors of the team, if there's any. Yeah, the coaches and the managers of the team, put it that way. But curious to hear what the viewers have to say. Leave it in the comment section. Remember, like, share, subscribe if you haven't done so as yet. Noranda Brown here from HalftimeTv saying, talk later. Bye-bye.